They want to go quick with Hogan to the rack and one. Flush, chucks it up, it's caught! Dagger!
Oh, she's gonna hit the gas. One-on-one, boom!
Hey, welcome back for Season 2, Episode 5 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week, I ran down the March Madness tournament and the glorious Florida Gators win. They won me money in an 84-player bracket pool, and I am still tempted to name my firstborn child Walter Clayton. Then we still can't decide as a whole society if we like the tush push, and neither can the NFL. They've tabled the vote on that play, but decided they're going to keep the dynamic kickoff indefinitely. Finally, I mused on just a few things around the last couple of games of the NBA regular season. LeBron came short of averaging 25 points a game for 20 straight years. Nikola Jokic ended up with almost a 30-point triple-double average. Finished top 3 in points, assists, rebounds, and steals. Was the first guy to ever do that, and will almost certainly lose the MVP race to SGA anyway. Today, let's start with Nico Imaliava. Say it 5 times fast. He's the Tennessee quarterback that is opening Pandora's cash box. In a fascinating career move, he decided to hold out Tennessee's spring practice because he wanted a new NIL deal. Now it's even progressed beyond a holdout, and he is officially going to transfer. He is not with the team anymore, and their head coach Josh Heupel was naturally asked about it right away after their spring game. I've still never been to a spring game, by the way, but I've heard they're awesome, especially in the SEC. Coach Heupel said, just the landscape of college football, that this happens at this point. Any smart head coach is going to know not to complain publicly about the portal, especially during the spring when the last couple of guys who are on the fence are probably going to start their transfer process. They don't want to drive away or alienate anybody if they were on the fence. As of Wednesday morning of this week, Imaliava was officially in the transfer portal with the do not contact tag, and I had to look it up because it's getting so relevant right now. It just gives the player control of who they talk to and when, so that schools or coaches can't reach out to them first. It could mean he already has a short list of transfer destinations and doesn't want to make the decision any tougher, or that he still has to work through what's going to happen to the money that he would have had left at Tennessee. That's sort of my guess, and he's got to figure out, okay, is there still agent fees? Is there any way that they still owe me some of the money even though I didn't, quote-unquote, hold up my end of the contract? A lot to think about. That deal that he signed back in March of 2022, it was for the full 4 years, imagine that he could have spent there, and about $8 million overall. At the time, it was believed to be the biggest contract for an individual athlete ever. Of course, the doors have been blown off the hinges now, and Imaliava was just inside the top 25 highest-paid NIL athletes for 2024. There's lots of chatter that nobody wants anything to do with a 20-year-old, less-than-elite quarterback that's only played 1 year as a starter. He threw for 19 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, which was good, and about 2,600 yards this year, but promptly laid an egg against the eventual champion Ohio State Buckeyes in the first round of the playoff. He only threw for 104 yards on 14 of 31. He is not an elite runner either. Yes, there's sack yardage factored into quarterback rushing output. A lot of you have probably heard that. That's only in college football. But considering that, he was credited with 358 yards at 3.3 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. In the NFL, we talk all the time about players holding out and how they're betting on themselves. That is, trusting that their pedigree and their skill is going to bring them more money the longer they wait. The one bit of good news for Imaliava is that he'll only be a redshirt sophomore when he does transfer, so that extends his value a little bit, but there's a good chance he's going to lose himself a bunch of money in the portal. The even worse news is, again, he is not an elite quarterback yet at this point. Maybe it's unfair to say, and maybe he'll get there physically, mentally, and with the X's and O's, but for now, he's only been linked to a handful of programs, and probably none of them are going to be able or willing to hit that $2 million a year or more that he could have had staying at Tennessee. The first solution I've been hearing to NIL issues and holdouts is to allow contract buyouts. It doesn't sit right with me to give the player the entire 4-year value of a deal that they played through less than half of, but if it came down to a settlement number that both sides could agree on, I might actually be able to get behind that. I think you'd have to have a third party private arbiter hear both sides, each throws out an initial number, and then it could become a lot like MLB arbitration. One of the money figures from one side or the other is going to be agreed on by everyone or assigned directly by the arbiter if the two can't agree on their own. Tons of other talks are being had with college football and other programs and sports around the country as this sort of lights the gas trail. Should players be given employee status at the school? Well, if it's paying them a very hefty salary, then probably. Should everyone on NIL deals be able to collectively bargain? Also, probably yeah. It's tough to guess how quickly all the necessary rules can even be written right now because there are practically no rules on how anyone should handle this whole situation. It is happening, it's in our face, and it's going to keep happening in greater and greater numbers if decent athletes can become millionaires before they've ever gone pro. Now, most of the rest of this episode, it's going to be the NBA playoff preview. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the play-in games happened. Yeah, that's about it. I still don't love that 2/3 of the league, quote-unquote, makes the playoff, but they're rolling with it. Remember how the format goes. The play-in games are the 7th and 8th, and then the 9th and 10th seeds. The winner of the 7-8 game automatically becomes the 7 seed, and they will play the 2 seed in their conference. The loser of the 7-8 game will then play another game versus the winner of the 9 and 10 seed game, the loser of the 9 and 10 seed game being eliminated outright. Finally, the winner of the final elimination game becomes the 8th seed and typically gets smacked by the 1 seed. Especially this year with how much the Cavs and Thunder distance themselves from everybody else, boy, I really feel bad for the 8 seeds as they get in. As I say it all, it makes my head spin. In a league with 30 teams, even 16 of them making the postseason is maybe too many. I know the whole idea of the play-in started during the bubble, and there was COVID, and they wanted to get back to playing quickly and give everybody a fair chance, but the league could really revert to something a little less quote-unquote fair and make teams prioritize actually winning regular season games more. 5 teams under 500 made at least the play-in, with the Heat in the East going 37-45. I would like to see the entire play-in scrapped eventually, but I doubt it will be anytime soon. There were going to be a few interesting takeaways from these play-in games no matter who won them. Steph Curry and Draymond Green with the Warriors, they only have so many runs left in them each, and for Golden State to end up in the play-in at all is such a far cry from where they've been for most of those two guys' careers. They had the Grizzlies on Tuesday night, and side note, this will be a quick tangent, have you heard about Ja Morant and his celebration antics? It started with miming shooting a long gun. And of course, I understand why no player should be able to do that. But this is Ja Morant. This is not any player. He of the 2 suspensions for flashing actual guns on socials. He switched to pulling the pin and chucking a grenade as if that was a whole lot better after he hits a 3-pointer recently. And after he got another big fine for finger guns, it now hasn't been an issue yet. At least he hasn't been fined. I'll just say on the note of officiating this, be completely consistent. If you don't want to allow weapon celebrations or what could be construed as weapon celebrations at any time, then they should all be big fines. If you want celebrations to be untouched, then do not touch them. Just make up your mind at the league level. The Grizz-Warriors game was tight a lot of the way, but playoff Jimmy Butler had maybe his best game of the year, dropping 38 points to lead all scorers, playing 40 minutes. That was the most in the game too. That trade and the extension that Golden State gave him finally look like they may both be worth it. The Magic throttled the Hawks 120-95, but Atlanta, young as they are, was probably just happy to be there. That means the Magic earned the right to get thumped by the Celtics in the first round. Orlando is young, they're fun, they're mad physical, but Boston never broke up the team that destroyed everybody and won the finals last year. Celtics are going to sweep that. The Warriors will have the Rockets. They only finished with 4 less wins in the regular season, but that's the gap between 2nd and 7th in the West. They're going to be as dangerous a 7 seed as the Lakers were last year, but if you'll recall, LA got beat in 5 games by their arch nemesis, the Denver Nuggets. I need to pick an upset somewhere, so let's say Steph and Jimmy Butler have their best series together. They average, 55 points a game combined, and I'll take the Warriors dramatically in 7 over the Rockets. Wouldn't that be fun? As for the rest of the play-in, the Mavericks whomped on the Kings. Look, teams who trade their best player and still make the playoffs will always regret it. De'Aaron Fox and Luka Doncic back on these two teams respectively would have given them vastly different outlooks. Because the last two elimination games are Friday night, Heat Hawks in the East and Grizz Mavs in the West, I won't know for sure who's going to all be in the playoffs before this episode comes out. I am going to guess. Dallas will take some good momentum and get off to a hot start offensively, enough to get the Grizzlies off their game and into a jump shooting contest. Klay Thompson, boy, he started to come alive. He shot it as well as probably he has this season in that play-in game. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and Klay, it's still kind of a big three, although a couple of them are past their prime a little bit. They've all won championships before, played in a ton of playoff games. For the Mavs to win, that would take them from the 10 to the 8 seed and have them get smacked by the Thunder. I would say Thunder will sweep that one as well. Then I'll take the Heat over the Hawks just after the game Tyler Hero had on Wednesday night for Miami. 38 points on 13 of 19 to tie Jimmy Butler for the most on the night. That would mean both 10 seeds actually get in and end up making it. But the Heat's matchup with the Cavaliers would be just as bad, and they would probably get swept as well. Now to the rest of the playoff field beyond the play-in. The Thunder and Celtics are the two betting favorites right now. They're at around plus 170 and plus 185, depending on where you look. The Cavaliers are third. I would wager that plus 480 is an incredibly rare number for a team that went 64 and 18. In fact, I had to look this up, but there have only been 25 teams in league history to win 64 or more games in a year, and naturally we got 2 of them this year. Side note, I actually drove to Cleveland last weekend, and I went by both Progressive Field where the Guardians play and Rocket Arena where the Cavs play. They both looked incredible. Anyway, the Cavs just lost a lot of steam throughout the second half, but they had one of the best starts that the league has ever seen, and their style has been unchanged for several years now. Tough as nails, 2 star guards offensively, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and 5 other double-digit scorers that, combined with how hard they play defensively, just give them a great shot to win every night. They should still be ahead of Boston in title odds, if you ask me, and none of the 1 or 2 seeds are getting upset or even coming particularly close. Book it. The 3-6 matchups are Lakers-Timberwolves in the West and Knicks-Pistons in the East. The Wolves are as dangerous as ever, and they were the 2 seed last year if you'll recall. Their roster hasn't changed much, whereas the Lakers roster could not look more different than last year. LeBron James and Luka Doncic, remember, they're on the same team. I just want to remind you of that, and myself of that, to make sure that it's still real. That was another April Fool's tweet / Instagram post and all that I should have tried to troll more people with, because I did see that back on my timeline on April 1st that the Luka trade got rescinded by the league. Most of the offensive and defensive numbers for LA and Minnie are pretty identical, which is to say, pretty average. And they probably should have had better records each, but they couldn't because of how tight the West was. Anthony Edwards is always capable of playing MVP. Rudy Gobert, you got the 4 Defensive Player of the Years, absolutely dominant rim defender. But that's the thing. Anthony Edwards' number 2 scorer is Julius Randle, and Luka's is LeBron James. Lakers in 5. The Villanova Knicks will never not be solid as long as they keep their core intact. The Pistons are the most fun upstart team of this year, and they haven't won this many games in a decade. Cade Cunningham is finally the guy. He averaged 26, 6, and 9 with 9 triple-doubles in year 4, and he was a first-time All-Star. Still, though, the Knicks have a really good argument for having the best starting 5 in the league. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges are all under 30 years old. They all play a ton of minutes. They're tough as nails, and they all stayed healthy this year. Continuity, predictability. Knicks are going to sweep in round 1. Sorry, Detroit. As happens so often, the 4 and 5 matchups are tough to know what to make of. You have Nuggets Clippers in the West, Pacers Bucks in the East. Both series have so many current and former MVPs and All-Stars and Hall of Famers and deep playoff runs. Giannis has won 2 MVPs with the Bucks, of course. Jokic has won 3 of the last 4 with Denver. James Harden won in 2017. Kawhi Leonard has come close, but also has 2 Defensive Player of the Years. I'm all about it. Jokic is the best player on earth, and even though he, in all likelihood, I'm going to say, will not win regular season MVP, he will probably be the most valuable player of the entire first round of the playoffs across the league. The Pacers are built a tad bit similarly to the Knicks, in that they have a really solid starting 5 and a lot of balance. Last year, they were the top scoring team in the league, and their pace was ridiculous, so they played lots of shootouts. They also have the top scoring single game of the NBA season this year with 162 points. They did fall to 7th in team scoring. They slowed down their pace a little bit, but they still have top 10 numbers in everything offensively. The Milwaukee Bucks are the best three-point shooting team by pure percentage, but Damian Lillard, their top volume shooter and another future Hall of Famer, is out with a blood clot in his calf, at least to start that series. They'd need really great shooting from role players. Think Taurean Prince, Kevin Porter Jr., and at some point in this series, especially without Dame, the Bucks are really going to wish that they didn't trade one of the best players in franchise history, Chris Middleton, at the deadline. To the Wizards of all teams, that's a slap in the face. All in all, give me Nuggets in 6 over the Clippers with a lot of close games and a buzzer beater for the win somewhere. And Pacers over the Bucks. Gosh, if Dame doesn't play at all, how about in 5 games? Closing thoughts after the NBA playoff preview. The world has seen and heard this plenty enough already, but Rory McIlroy capping his career Grand Slam with a win at the Masters the way he did was the most emotional thing I've seen in sports in years. I'm thinking maybe since Derek Jeter retired. It took missing a birdie putt that would have sealed it and then going on to win the playoff with a birdie on the first hole against Justin Rose. It was such a class act from Jim Nantz, too, on the broadcast, to just give everyone 7 minutes or so of listening to the crowd and Rory himself and all the people congratulating him. Paige Beckers finally won a national championship with UConn women's basketball after 5 years, then promptly went number 1 overall in the WNBA draft to the Dallas Wings. That feeling has to be close to Rory's emotionally. And next week, we're going to have to do our full NFL first-round mock draft. That was one of the first episodes I ever made, and one of the ones I enjoyed the most, too. I didn't do very well in terms of predicting actual picks and where everybody was going to go. I was good with positions, however, but just the research, the combine numbers that everybody put up, and the rumor mill as we get closer and closer always makes it great. I'll probably even drop that episode a little bit early so that it's out before the first night of the draft starts. That's going to be Thursday night in primetime. What do you say? Same time, same place next week? As always, check out my many socials, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, at The Voice of Tanner, YouTube, The Voice of Tanner, X, Voice of Tanner. Peace. This has been Season 2, Episode 5 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me. They want to go quick with Hogan to the rack and one! Flush, chucks it up, it's caught! Dagger!
She's gonna hit the gas. What I want, boom!